Welcome to tonight's edition of Now the Halacha. Now the Halacha is an ongoing presentation of the Weiss Entertainment Network. 613 on your dial, recorded edition tonight. Okay, anyway, we're discussing. We'll just do a brief Now the Halacha. We're discussing things that relate to Lecha Mishnah and cutting two challahs. We spoke about, do you have to cut both challahs, how you're supposed to hold them, and different things that are related to that. Now, so just a couple of more or questions that came up in this topic. When distributing the bread or matzah, can the head of the family toss the slice of bread to the participant, or must it be handed to them? So that's where you're going to see difference between Sephardim and Ashkenazim. So if the bread will become dirty or ruined when tossed, or even if there is a chance that it is forbidden to toss the bread. So that you can't do, since it's forbidden, because anything that will lead to bal tashchis, so you can't do that. This is true of all other foods as well. But if the bread will not get dirty or ruined when thrown, the Rishonim disagree as to whether or not it may be tossed. Most poskim rule stringently on this issue. Other foods, however, may be tossed if they will not become dirty or ruined. Mishnah Berurah, however, notes that some poskim permit it, and others quote people who had the minhag. So, yet passing the slice of motzi directly into the hand of the person who eat it is also frowned upon by the Shulchan Aruch. So that's the other thing. It's considered bad mazel to do so, since this is the manner which we serve a mourner when he is sitting shiva. So, therefore, since neither tossing the piece of bread nor handing it directly is appropriate, the correct method is to place the bread slices on the table within easy reach of participants, or to pass around slices of bread on a serving plate. This applies to any meal which bread is served even on a weekday. It's very interesting. So the minhag is really not to hand directly into. It's preferable not to hand the bread directly into the hand, but either have it on the table or put it on a bread. Regarding a mourner during Shiva, the bread is handed to him directly. On Shabbos, however, when there's no availus, the bread should not be handed to him directly to a mourner. So that's something a lot of people don't realize, that you're supposed to hand food to an avel. And he's saying here that when it comes to Shabbos, one should not hand food to the avel, because he shouldn't have simani avelus on Shabbos. Now, after reciting a motzi, must one eat a full kazayis of bread immediately before talking or eating other foods? So you have to, when this is true by motzi matzah. So halacha is that we say motzi matzah at the seder, a person has to immediately eat. You have about something called kadei achilas pras, which is about 2 to 9 minutes, and he's supposed to eat the kazayis matzah in them. Really, you should eat it closer to 3 or 4 minutes, but. So one is not required to do so. After reciting a motzi, one is required only to swallow any small amount of bread before talking or eating other foods. Although one is not required to eat a kazayis immediately after hamotzi, the post can recommend that one do so if possible. This is because one is required to eat a kazayis bread within 3 to 4 minutes at some point during the meal. If not, he cannot recite Birkas Hamazon, even if he's satiated from the other foods eaten during the meal. So you have to have a kazayis of bread. It's important to be said. So in addition, one who does not eat a kazayis within 3 to at some point during the meal would be required to recite a bracha rishona over all the other foods eaten during the meal. Therefore, to ensure one remembers to eat a kazayis sometimes during the meal, it is recommended to eat a kazayis immediately after reciting hamotzi. That's right. If you want hamotzi to cover you, so you have to eat a kazayis of bread in order to establish a kfiyas at the table. So therefore, it's best to eat a kazayis of challah immediately. I would say a kazayis is probably one solid piece. If it's a very thin piece, obviously it's not a kazayis, but a very like a decent sized piece of challah, probably. Sorry about that. Probably is considered a kazayis for this halacha. So it's important. Now, as far as talking, so you're allowed to talk in between. And some people go right into the fish, and if you're eating the challah with the fish, you're gonna be yotzei, they're eating the challah together within that time. Okay, last issue, and then we'll wrap up. If one mistakenly spoke after reciting hamotzi, but before biting or swallowing even a small amount of bread, does he need to repeat hamotzi? L'chachila, one is not allowed to speak on at all until after he swallows at least a small piece of bread. As we mentioned earlier, it is recommended that the entire kazayis be eaten at this time. With the Evan, if one spoke even a single word between saying hamotzi and taking the first bite of bread, and what he said was completely unrelated to the meal, he must repeat hamotzi before continuing to eat. But if he spoke about something related to the meal, for example, he said pass the salt, then he may eat without repeating hamotzi. If a person spoke about something unrelated to meal after taking his bite, but before swallowing, he should not repeat hamotzi before continuing to eat. The person has to be nizar that when you make brachos, that it's important not to talk before you eat the bread, and preferably to eat a kazayas of bread without talking. But then it's not required as it is by achilas matzah. There's one other halacha I wanted to mention that it's brought down in halacha that by benching you should have challah, pieces of challah on the table. There should be remnants of the bread that remain on the table, and you should be able to see the challah when you say hamotzi. The other discussion that should be mentioned is I mentioned in the past the machlokas between those that follow the Vilna Gaon and others. When should the challah be brought to the table? Should the challah be brought to the table? Should the challahs already be on the table when you're reciting kiddush or not? So the general minhag Ashkenaz is that we have the challahs on the table. Now yekes go right into hamotzi, so they certainly have the challahs on the table. The Gra brings down because there's a shaila, because you don't want to, because really hamotzi should be the bracha before hagafen, but you have to make kiddush. So the Gra brings down the minhag that to not put the challahs on the table to after saying hamotzi. Okay, that's just our wrap up discussion on halachas of Lechem Mishnah as it relates to Hilchos Shabbos. And Mr. Shem, next week we'll go on to a different topic. Take care, everybody. I apologize for not being on live, but Mr. Hashem, hopefully you'll listen to this.